can you tell me a little bit about the genesis of this idea? I know your previous shorts were flamingos and an aquarium.
Yeah.
So like, do you like animals?
Yeah. Well, the flamingos were more about lawn ornament flamingos, but bird related, and also sort of quirky. I do love animals, is the short answer. I grew up as an aquarium kid. I loved aquarium fish. I wanted to be a marine biologist or a naturalist. I worked at the New England Aquarium and the Mass Audubon Society, like as like a field ranger kind of high school, college student. So I've always been interested in this world. So the origin of the idea came from the short aquarium, which I made as my thesis at NYU for grad school. And then it did well enough that it garnered enough attention that people said you should try adapting it into a feature. And then I met Luke, and we kind of came up with a strategy for how to take this short and take the characters, but come up with a new story that would fit more of the feature form. And the feature, is the Birders Guide to Everything.
And what was the transition like for you with that? Because I know like writing a short, I mean they're both narratives, but writing a short compared to writing a feature is a completely different experience. So how did you guys adjust to that?
Well, we kind of dove right in. We spent a week outlining it. His short is pretty contained in just a couple locations, but we had kind of a quest narrative for the feature, so that gave it kind of a natural three-act structure. We outlined it for a week, and then we banged out the first draft in 4 days, and then spent several years writing other drafts. But I think that was an instructive lesson, because I think we could have taken 4 months to write the first draft that still would have been about as bad. So it was nice that we just
better to get through the first draft, or the puke draft, as we call it, which you don't even want to show your family.
Right.
So bad. We could, when you're writing as a team, we could write 10 pages each a day, and we could just crank out pages and pages. So then it was like clay, and then we could
that's a good way
shape that clay into something.
So are you writing 10 separate pages, or are you?
Yeah.
So it's like in a day, it'd be like we'd have about 20 pages mapped out. I would get the first half, he would get the second half. At the end of the day, we would.
They weren't always good pages, but some of them didn't change at all.
Yeah, some of the stuff was at the screening last night, like some of those lines. Yeah.
I think you're moving the camera.
Oh, sorry. Oh,
it's like a free visual effect.
Yeah, exactly.
It's an earthquake. So now, it's one thing to write a script and finish it. It's another to actually know that your movie is going to get made. So what was it that boosted you to that level?
I feel like the knowing it's going to get made.
We only knew it was going to get made, I'd say, when we had all the money in the bank to make it. Up until then, it definitely felt like we all hoped it would get made, and we all thought it would get made, but knowing is something different, and it meant having to sort of plan our lives around not knowing when it's going to happen, which was challenging. That was probably one of the most challenging parts, is this sort of not knowing, and not knowing what scale. We could have always made the movie for like $100, and we could have starred in it, but if we wanted the resources to cast some good actors and to shoot it beautifully and to find locations, then we were going to have to wait until we could kind of get the financing together.
And how was the financing process? Was it family and friends and things like that?
It was a little family and friends. It was mostly people who've invested in other features, other production companies that have made features, some grant money from the Alfred P. Sloan Foundation, the Columbus Vague Award at NYU, and Sundance and Tribeca Film Institutes. They all put money in. So we got a lot of encouragement along the way, and that was another helpful, just to get us closer to our goal financially, and also just like, okay, this is, other people like this film too. Keep trying to make it. It's not just us who like the film.
And how is it having so much support like that? I mean, on the one hand, you get a boost of confidence, but on the other, is it like kind of frightening to need to live up to their expectations?
No, that never dawned on me. I always knew the people who gave us grants, I knew were going to love the film because they loved the script, and I wrote a script that I knew I could deliver. I didn't write a script that I didn't think I could, or we wrote a script. We wrote a script that was sort of catered to my first directing job. If we had written a sci-fi,
that's true,
action adventure psycho thriller thing, and I was like, yeah, I'm sure I'll be able to do that, then I would be nervous. But like, this is what I look at producers and say, if there's one person in the world that can execute on this idea, it's me, because this is my story, it's my tone, these are characters from my short. So I was never that worried about the execution. I was always worried about, it makes you sound kind of cocky, but it's in my wheelhouse.
Was there anything about moving from directing shorts to features that took you by surprise?
Oh yeah, it was way more difficult. I mean, it's a huge challenge, so it definitely was way harder than...
Well, how long was the shoot for your short?
The shoot for my short was 10 days.
Right, and then the
shoot for the feature was 21 days.
How long was the short?
It was 15 minutes, so it was a leisurely schedule.
That happens though.
But we were, it was all students, so we were learning a little bit how to do it. And
you get the rig for 2 weeks for free. So
no one's getting paid, and the rig's free. So like, why not? And we're all crashing at my parents' house, so it's like, take as long as we need. This one, everyone was getting paid, and the cost per day, we could only afford a certain amount of days. So the pressure of getting it done in the time allotted was very, very high. And just the intensity and the scale of it took me by surprise. It was nothing like me and my friends doing a short film in our backyard. It was like, there were trucks, there was generator, it was like, it was definitely it felt like a big jump.
Sir Ben Kingsley.
Sir Ben Kingsley. Was
I wasn't working with him. I mean, that must be a major plus for you. But
Yeah.
I mean, personally, I'd be freaked out.
Yeah, I was a little freaked out, but he actually was super cordial, professional, and like, I kept on, he did the movie because he loved our script, and that's what actors always said, but I never really believed it. I thought there must be some other reason he was doing it, but then we met him, and he was like, I think he called it Chekhovian.
Yeah, I prepare for this the same way I prepare for Chekhov.
Yeah, and we were like, oh my god. So when he was being honest.
He loved
the
really
project, and he loved his character, and he had a very. So I just felt like I had the honor of watching him work and making sure, basically, that he kind of knew the context of the rest of the film, tonally, and where he was, and it was sort of my job just to kind of make sure he fit into the story, because he was only there for the week that he was shooting. But generally, it was just a pleasure to watch him work, and the kids, I think, learned a lot about blocking, actually, because the kids were great. The ones who hadn't done as much feature work couldn't quite do the blocking, it didn't come as naturally to them. So to watch him do it so well, and not make it feel like something that got in his way, but actually something that was liberating for him, to have marks and to have beats, and that's a good thing and not a bad thing, I think was educational for all of us.
And how was it working with all the kids? I was just talking to them, and
yeah, they're fun.
They're quite the lively. So
they're lively. Yeah, you didn't get to meet Cody because he's filming Planet of the Apes right now. But they were awesome. I mean, I kind of would either want to be a film director or maybe like a camp counselor. So this was like kind of getting to do both. Like, we basically had a bunch of cool, fun kids that I think really enjoyed the project and respected the process and were really professional but really fun. And shooting up in Chappaqua in the Westchester, it felt like we were going to camp, and that sort of set the tone of the whole.
And I think their spirit infused the rest of the production.
Yeah.
And people, I think, wanted to do a good job on it because they like the kids so much.
Yeah. And the kids want to do a good job because they didn't want to let down the crew. It was like a feedback loop where everyone was like doing it for each other, which is really nice.
And how was it working with Cody in particular? Because it doesn't really seem in line with what I've seen him.
No, that's why I think he was really excited to do it. And I think a lot of people haven't seen this side of him before, that he's like a normal, cool, funny, sensitive kid. He's not just like a vampire boyfriend or post-apocalyptic survivor or an animated claymation kid. What did they make? Paranorman. Was this like clay? No, it wasn't.
Stop motion.
Stop motion.
But what were the figurines made of? Anyway, he's not a stop motion kid. Yeah, what do you think, Cody?
I thought he seemed to be like if you and I had a baby. Or like physically, or like.
Oh yeah.
It was weird.
Personality-wise.
No, he's his own thing. He's just a pretty impressive actor.
Well, I think I dressed him like me as a kid. He's much cooler in real life. He wears really cool.
Yeah, that's true.
Clothing.
I only ever saw him in costume, so I
dressed him in like there was one day where actually we were dressed exactly the same, and it wasn't planned. They were just like, "Oh, Rob, you always wear blue T-shirts and blue jeans and your gray Converse, and that's why you dress." So he kind of took on a little bit of my personality as a kid, a bit like shy and awkward. But yeah, I think he looks kind of tall. He's gotten very tall in the last few years. So.
Oh yeah, he obviously had grown 3 inches in the previous. Yeah.
He grew like an inch over the course of the shoot.
Right.
And how is it in terms of balancing like, I don't want to call it the stereotypes, but they were telling me that you had them watch Stand By Me.
Yeah.
So how is it having like that group dynamic without having the characters fit into those
too much?
Moments?
Yeah. Well, I didn't make them watch Stand By Me, if that's what they told you. They brought Stand By Me, and they're like, Rob, we want to watch this because it would be great bonding. And I was like, this is fantastic, because 15-year-old kids who want to see a movie from the mid-'80s are my kind of kids. It didn't, you know what, I didn't worry about it too much, because I knew, like, Alex, you met Alex, he's going to be Alex, and he's not going to be anything else. And Cody, you know, like, they all had such strong personalities. I mean, Michael really was playing a pretty different character for himself, but he did it in a way that I've never seen before. His deadpan, like, fear was, like, very specific and unique to that performance. That was really special to Michael. So we didn't worry too much about being compared to other films, because I kind of feel like even if we were trying to reproduce something, we wouldn't have succeeded, because it's going to be infused with our story and with the kids' personalities. And yeah, I think so far people have really responded that the dynamics of the kids felt really genuine, because they were, and they really did bond, and they probably told you they I think they had a great time on set.
I think they did.
Yeah.
And was there like a lot of messing around on set? I like, after sitting in a room with them for 15 minutes.
There was. I mean, I tried to allow as much as that as the schedule would allow, but and I was always the good cop. But occasionally, you know, the AD would have to be like, okay, I'm glad you guys are having fun, but we're running out of time, and so they'd have to sort of like channel that energy. But I always found, actually, every time I got stressed and I was like, God, they're messing around while we're supposed to be shooting, but we'd let them do it a few times anyway. I think we used every take where they were actually just messing around, and I thought at the time, I'm like, that's really cool and fun, but we're never going to use it because it won't fit into the film. And then actually, it worked beautifully, and all of the fun messing around moments were a lot of the best moments.
Does the final film like adhere to your original vision, or did it go through that genesis throughout script, production, editing?
How about you have more of a perspective on that.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's like really close. I think Rob did a great job. As a co-writer, it's sort of your involvement kind of ends like once the movie goes to the director's hands. But yeah, I mean, it had everything that I had in my head, and I think Rob brought maybe even an increased tenderness to the performances that that I didn't see as much in the page. But yeah, I think you really I think you get a sense of the kids being like pretty realistic teenagers, and you can see why they like each other. And yeah, I think Rob did a great job with it.
It might have ended, I think, because of the kids that we cast. I think it may have ended up feeling a little more naturalistic than it read on the page. It might have read a little more mannered and a little more like goofball.
Right.
I personally found like the Young Birders Society meeting. I actually kind of believed that it was a real, like this was actually happening, which I never expected. I always thought it would be funny and get laughs, but actually the kids made it so true.
They just made it like it was a realistic thing.
Like it actually was happening. So there were moments, and so I think it went a little more naturalistic and maybe a little more tender than.
Yeah, no.
But in terms of the actual script, it didn't change. Like it's almost line for line. Other than the improvised scenes, it's pretty close to the actual script.
Now, what did you guys think of the reaction last night? I mean, everybody was laughing.
I'm excited. It was great. I'm excited. I want to see all 4 screenings because I bet you the responses will be people will laugh at different parts or find it more moving or less moving. The audience is. It was a good example of how audiences can affect the experience of seeing a film. And what the people around you are feeling starts to infuse what you're feeling. So I think it kind of was infectious.
Yeah, we were sitting next to each other. I felt like we were like parents watching a kid in like a hurdle race, and each punchline was like, come on, yeah, we got it.
And there definitely were a couple where we weren't expecting a laugh.
Right.
Great, we'll take it.
And a couple where we didn't get the laugh.
Where we didn't get a laugh. And we're like,
was that yours? Or was that
no hopes for this to kick off a birding craze? I mean, really, I was walking down the street and there's little bird hopping on the floor, and the first thing I thought of was your movie.
I think I don't know about a birding craze. I mean, there already is a birding craze. Actually, numbers-wise, it's a much bigger field than you would think. I do think, we had a bird walk this morning. I hope people understand why people would get up at 5 in the morning to go look for something special, because that's sort of what it is. It's I feel like we're always looking for something, an extraordinary moment in our lives, and today we saw a black and white warbler en route from Florida to Alaska, and it was only going to be in Central Park for a week. And we happened to be there, and the guy we were with, who's been doing this for 30 years or 40 years, was like, "Oh my God, you know, it's black," and everyone, the whole crowd, like, found it. You know, everyone got their binoculars up, and then it flew right over our heads, and there was like a gasp, you know, and like people will remember that, and it was like. Birding is a collection of kind of extraordinary moments that take some serendipity, and they take a lot of like patience and hard work to get there. So I think that's what.
And it only happened once.
I mean, it happens and then it disappears, and that's it. And there's no planning or controlling it. So I think I got into it, as you can tell, and I think it's a very once you're doing it and you're with someone good and you see something good. It's the polar opposite experience of watching footage of a person bird, which is just like a dorky guy like me with binoculars up, you know, looking like he cares too much about, you know, you get why people care so much.